Imagine a crime so devastating that it destroys a family and leaves investigators with nothing but ashes. A fire that seems accidental, a tragedy with no answers. Until one hero steps forward. Not a detective, not a firefighter, but a four-legged canine with a nose that can sniff out the truth. This is the story of how a police dog named Alex uncovered the horrific crime of Eric Parsons. Stay with us. You won't believe how this dog turned a hopeless case into a conviction, a tragedy in flames. In the early 2000s, a quiet neighborhood in the United States was shattered by a horrific tragedy. A house went up in flames, claiming the lives of a mother and her 4 children. The blaze was so intense that it left little behind but charred remains and unanswered questions. At first, it seemed like a heartbreaking accident, but whispers of suspicion began to surface. The father, Eric Parsons, claimed to be a grieving survivor, but something about his story didn't add up. The police were determined to find the truth, but the fire had destroyed nearly all evidence. That is, until a remarkable police dog named Alex entered the scene with a skill that would change everything. Welcome to Beyond Facts TV, where we uncover the stories that go beyond the headlines. Today, we're diving into the Eric Parsons arson case, a chilling tale of betrayal, loss, and the incredible instincts of a canine hero who brought justice to a grieving community, a family in crisis. Before the fire that changed everything, Eric Parsons and his family appeared to live an ordinary life. He was a husband and father of 4, living in a modest home with his wife and children, whose names we'll withhold out of respect for their memory. To neighbors, they seemed like a typical family, but behind closed doors, tensions were brewing. Eric's marriage was strained, marked by financial struggles and frequent arguments. His wife was a devoted mother, pouring her heart into raising their children, while Eric's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Friends later recalled that he seemed distant, preoccupied, and quick to anger in the months leading up to the tragedy. The children, full of life and innocence, were unaware of the storm brewing in their home. On the night of the fire, the family was supposed to be together, safe in their beds. But when the flames erupted, everything changed. The fire department arrived too late to save the mother and children, and Eric emerged as the sole survivor, claiming he barely escaped with his life. His story tugged at the community's heartstrings, but investigators weren't so sure. Something about his demeanor, too calm, too rehearsed, raised red flags. The police needed evidence, but the fire had obliterated nearly every clue. They needed a miracle, and that miracle came in the form of a police dog named Alex, a fire fueled by evil. The truth behind the fire was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. Eric Parsons, driven by motives that investigators could only speculate, perhaps financial desperation, personal resentment, or a twisted desire to start anew, had committed an unthinkable act. He deliberately set fire to his own home, knowing his wife and 4 children were inside. To cover his tracks, he used an accelerant, a flammable substance like gasoline, to ensure the blaze would spread quickly and consume everything in its path. The fire roared through the house, reducing it to a smoldering ruin and leaving no obvious trace of foul play. Eric's plan was chillingly calculated. He positioned himself as a grieving widower, weeping for his lost family, while deflecting suspicion with a carefully crafted story of survival. He claimed he tried to save them, but was overcome by smoke and flames. The community rallied around him, unaware of the monster in their midst. Fire investigators suspected arson from the start, noting the fire's unusual intensity and rapid spread. But proving it was another matter. The heat had destroyed most physical evidence, and traditional forensic methods were coming up empty. The case teetered on the edge of going cold, with Eric potentially walking free. But the police had one last hope: a K9 trained to detect what no human or machine could. Alex, the arson detector. Enter Alex, a German shepherd, whose name would become synonymous with justice in this case. Alex was no ordinary dog. He was a highly trained member of the police K9 unit, specializing in accelerant detection. This skill is a marvel of canine training. Arson detection dogs are taught to identify the faintest traces of flammable substances like gasoline, kerosene, or lighter fluid, even after a fire has burned through a scene. Their noses can pick up chemical residues that survive intense heat, distinguishing them from thousands of other scents in a chaotic environment. Alex had undergone years of rigorous training, working alongside his handler to become a living, breathing forensic tool. When he arrived at the charred remains of the Parsons home, the investigation was at a standstill. The scene was a nightmare for investigators. Piles of debris, melted materials, and the overwhelming smell of smoke. Human investigators had combed through the wreckage, but the fire's destruction left them with little to work with. Alex's handler, a seasoned K9 officer, trusted his partner's instincts. As soon as Alex stepped into the ruins, he went to work, methodically sniffing through the rubble. His focus was unwavering. Within minutes, he alerted at 9 distinct points across the house, locations where he detected the unmistakable scent of an accelerant. These included spots in the living room, the bedrooms, and most damningly, on a pile of Eric Parsons' clothing recovered from the scene. Each alert was a piece of the puzzle, pointing to a deliberate act of arson. Alex's precision was staggering, providing the breakthrough the police so desperately needed. Justice for the victims. Alex's discoveries were the turning point that transformed the Eric Parsons case from a suspected tragedy to a proven crime. The 9 points where Alex detected accelerant were carefully documented and analyzed. Forensic chemists confirmed the presence of gasoline residues at each location, corroborating Alex's findings. The pattern was undeniable. The accelerant had been spread strategically to maximize the fire's destruction, a hallmark of arson. Most incriminating of all was the residue on Eric's clothing, which directly linked him to the crime. His story of being a helpless victim began to collapse. When confronted with the evidence, Eric's calm facade cracked. His explanations grew inconsistent, and his alibis unraveled. Under intense questioning, he eventually confessed to setting the fire, though his motives remained vague. Perhaps a desire to escape his troubled life. Perhaps something even darker. The confession was a bombshell, confirming the worst fears of investigators and the community. The case moved to trial, where Alex's role took center stage. Prosecutors highlighted the K9's extraordinary ability to detect evidence that human investigators had missed, painting a vivid picture of a dog who outsmarted a killer. The jury was convinced, and Eric Parsons was convicted of multiple counts of murder and arson, sentenced to life in prison without parole. The verdict brought a measure of closure to a community devastated by loss, though nothing could undo the tragedy. Alex's work didn't just solve a case. It honored the memory of the victims, ensuring their deaths were not in vain. The legacy of Alex. The Eric Parsons arson case is a testament to the power of police dogs like Alex, whose instincts and training can crack even the most challenging cases. This tragic story reminds us that justice can prevail, thanks to the unsung heroes of law enforcement, K9s who work tirelessly to uncover the truth. The victim's memory lives on through the pursuit of justice, and Alex's legacy inspires us all. If you found this story gripping, please like, share, and subscribe to Beyond Facts TV for more true crime tales. Know more about this case or other canine stories? Comment below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.